How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the channel. I'm Sagacious, and today we're going to talk about some industry, the basics of setting it up, and then we'll go into some more advanced techniques you can use for a larger industry setup. So let's get started. Starting out, we'll go over the industry units, which we have a refiner, smelter, metalwork industry, electronics, 3D printer, chemical industry, glass furnace, recycler, honeycomb refinery, and the transfer unit. We also have containers for storage and the assembly line units for assembling the final product. And those go from the extra small to the extra large. So let's look at some recipes and give you some tips on how you can find the answer to some questions you might have early on. So if you hit K, it opens up your NanoCrafter. Yours will initially have NanoCrafter only checked. So you have a NanoCrafter on you where you can craft items basically in your pack straight from your inventory. And these items can be done that way. If you uncheck this, you can see every recipe you can make with all machines. So it's important if you're looking for something that needs a machine to uncheck that. I already have it open, but you can just search in here, container. You'll click on the recipe, and then it will bring it up. You'll see that it requires a basic component, hydraulics, and a reinforced frame. You can click on each one of these to see what components are needed to make those. So that is made from Alfei alloy. Alfei alloy is made from aluminum and iron, and these are refined from bauxite and hematite. Up here at the top, you can click up here to move back up to your higher tier of item you've selected. You can also right click on these, inspect item. You can see the same recipe in there, but also the production list tells you which machine makes this item if you're curious about that. So this is made in the electronics industry. Hydraulics are made in the metalworks industry, and reinforced frames are made in the metalworks industry. We'll close those out. You can also click on your item to see which assembly line will make it if you're not making it in your NanoPack, which this one is made in the small. So let's set up a little assembly line for this and show you how connecting that works. Okay, so here's our little assembly line for an extra small container as an example. We'll start linking this up and I'll show you how that works. I need a refiner. So you're going to have your first container, which will be your raw ore, which goes from the container, and using your link tool number 6, you'll click the container. So it's from the container to the refiner, from the refiner to this container here. And you must output to a container. You cannot output directly to another machine. So this will refine our ore into pures. The pures will go into the smelters, which will refine the pure into metals. And those are going to output into this container here. Now our recipe requires 3 metals: Alfei alloy, steel, and silaman. I have an industry for each of those to show an example of setting that up. But these, to make the pures for these, it requires all 4 tier 1s. If you only had a single industry unit in that regard, you would have to change the recipe each time. There are a few options for producing materials. Run, which will run until you're out of the resource to make your product. Make will make however many you set in here, and then it will stop. And maintain will maintain that amount in the output container, and then it will stop. So since I only have one refiner here, I will have to make an amount of aluminum. Once that's done, I'd come in here and I would change it. And I would make the iron I need. I would come in here and I'll just show you the 4 basic materials: aluminum, carbon, iron, and silicon. So I would just go through and I would switch and make the amount of each of those that I needed, because I would only have 1 industry unit. You'll build up beyond this amount pretty quickly so that you don't have to keep changing recipes, and I'll show you how to set those links up later on. But early on, when you only have 1, you're going to have to change recipes. Okay, so we have our ore into pure, our pure into metal. Now we need to start making some items. We need basic components, which should take alpha alloy. So we're going to take that metal, send it into this machine here, which will output here. So this is going to make our basic components. Next, we need the basic reinforced frame. So we're going to take the metal from there to craft the frame and output it into this container. Let me break these real quick. Holding Alt and then clicking on a link will break the link. So this would output it into that container. We next need basic pipes, which takes the silamen, which was crafted from the smelters. So we'll connect that in, and we'll output that into this container. Now we could, instead of outputting this into its own container, we could have just outputted it all into here. If you don't have as many containers when you're starting out, you can output into a collective amount of containers. But keep note, industry and containers can only have 10 input links and 10 output links. And so when you start getting into larger industries, this is a bit of a problem, and I'll show you how to overcome that. So next, we need our basic hydraulics, which is steel and pipes. So our pipes are here, our steel is here, and that's going to output into this container. Now lastly, we have our container, which needs those 3 components, which is our hydraulics, our pipes, which we output here, and our components, which are also in that container. So we actually just need the 2 links currently to make our containers, which will output into this container. So that's kind of a very basic early setup and just kind of overview of how linking works. So when you start getting more industry and more links, it can get a little complex. As you can see, this is just the starting of a factory that's going to make quite a bit of things, and it's actually still very small, but by planning early its expansion, it'll be easy to grow the factory without running into the link problems, and we'll show how that works. So over here are all of the raw ore containers. Those are going to be sent into the refiners over here. And like I said before about changing recipes, there's enough refiners here. I have 2 for each ore currently, so that you never have to change recipes. That's important because if you train some talents in refining, and I'll show those a bit later, you can see that you get better production when you have better talents. And so if you have someone that has good talents, they can start up your refiners, and then you never have to change the recipes again, and you can just leave it. So it's coming from our ore containers into the refiners, and the refiners are outputting into their individual containers, 1 for each pure. It's also important to note that as you're setting up industry, you want to label everything. If you can see on the video there on the left, when I've highlighted this container, you can see it's aluminum. That's because I've right-click, rename, and name it aluminum. This is important for when you're looking at links from long distances. For example, if I'm somewhere trying to see where this link goes, it comes from the copper container and it goes over into the smelters. So I can kind of see if things are broken, or if I need to find something to change a link later on, it's easy to find which link I'm highlighted on. Because as you can see, it can get very confusing trying to figure out what this link does if you did not label everything. So make sure you label all of your containers. Now the reason these are all in individual containers is because of the link limit. I'm going to need these resources in a lot of places as this industry grows, but I can only have 10 links come out of this, and then the links are full here. A way to alleviate this a bit is with transfer units. An example of that is up here. As you can see, I have 10 electronics units. All of these are making basic electronics. You're going to need a lot of basic electronics, and I'll probably need many of these setups later on down the line. But to start out, rather than taking, for example, this takes polycarbonate plastic and basic components. Rather than taking 10 links out of the basic components container, which is over here. So rather than taking 10 links out just for that one setup, I will take one link, send it over into a transfer unit up here. That transfer unit is going to send those components into another container of basic components. And I do the same with the polycarbonate plastic, as you can see here. Now I take all 10 output links from here into each of these machines. So I'm using one link to power 10 machines. And I can continue to do that multiple times. As you get more and more, you'll have to start to calculate how fast these can move the items. As you can see, it does 100 liters every 10 seconds. And I can produce quite a bit more than that currently. But eventually, when I need to start making more of these to keep up with production later on the line, which you have to start getting into some calculations, you can see how that will get a little complicated. But to manage your links best, you want to use transfer units where appropriate. For an example is setups like this where I need a lot of these units to produce electronics. And it gets even worse as you get higher end units. Just come back over here. You see this is making one every 1 minute. This makes one every 4 minutes. So in order to keep up with some production later on down the line, I'm going to need even more of these because they initially take longer to make. So I might need 3 or 4 sets of transfer units to power 20 or 30 of these machines producing uncommon electronics, advanced electronics, and so on as you get more and more advanced items. And as you see, this setup is done the same way, but since these need 3 different items and transfer units only have a single output and they can only take a single unit, you can't have them take multiple items. So I need 3 transfer units to push all the items to this build here. And so that is how you can kind of expand on the link limits, if you can imagine what you can do from that. This is just one way to do it. There are many ways to do industry setups. You can do many smaller industry setups just like the one down here. Instead of setting it up using all these units to where this can make anything I want, you can have a lot of smaller factories that are dedicated to a single product or group of products which use similar items. So it can get quite complex. This industry is going to make everything possible in the game eventually. It's going to take quite a while to get there. And I will show progress on this later on. So there's a quick and basic tutorial on how industry works. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments below. And I will try to answer them the best I can. Again, I'll be making more videos depending on what kind of questions I get, and I'll show more advanced progress of this factory as it grows. And I'll show you how to overcome additional problems you'll run into, especially with keeping up with production in certain areas and to prevent things from running dry, basically. Alright, so thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys around. Also, if you have any questions, you can join the Infinity Corporation Discord, which I'll link below. And there's plenty of us in there that will be able to answer any of your questions about any aspect of the game, not just industry. And we'll be looking forward to talking to all of you in there.